Back with us, I'm having a conversation with Britain's senior diplomat in Jamaica. His name, Asif Ahmad, his title, High Commissioner. And we've been speaking for the last half an hour or so. All politics is local, High Commissioner. So let's dial it back a little bit towards Jamaica. You, when you came here in 2018, you announced, well, you spoke of some areas where you felt that deeper collaboration in these areas would be mutually beneficial for the countries. And you spoke about the fact that, look, planes carrying Jamaicans to Britain were filled with passengers, but beyond luggage, there wasn't any cargo going, and you saw that as a problem. How do you think that gap can be closed?
I think we're working on this very, very fervently, and it links with the conversation we're having about Brexit. You know, the Caribbean as a region, the CARIFORUM, is one of the groups that has already signed up with the UK should we leave. So we start on day one post-Brexit, where we start from the same terms that we have now. But only the Dominican Republic makes use and has made use of the pre-existing arrangement that we have with the EU as a whole. Because of their banana production, about 90%.
And just stick up in CARIFORUM is CARICOM plus the Dominican Republic.
Exactly.
Yes.
So then you look at the structure of the economy over here, and where can we think we can make a difference? One is, of course, is relatively easy. Jamaica wants to be a sort of a rules-based operator. They like to have these trading block to trading block agreements. They don't want the disputes to become punitive, and that's fine. But there are some areas which require attention. You know, what can Jamaica manufacture with the energy challenges that it has? So we've been talking to people about the agenda that is right here to move more and more towards renewables. So LNG is a big factor.
Yes.
Currently reliant on American companies, but British companies are interested in bringing some competition, and we're talking actively about that. Waste to energy. Yes. Another easy win. In a situation where Jamaica is struggling with what it actually is producing, but we have the means and the technology to do it. So you can actually look at manufacturing. There are some products that I think, and I was speaking to the Prime Minister the other day, and he was a bit surprised and said, I hadn't ever seen it that way. If you look at the way in which Jamaicans like to look after themselves in terms of hair care and fashion and nail care, etc., absolutely dazzling when you see people in their finest, whether it's on a Sunday or for parties or whatever. And there's a whole market out there of people of mixed race, of Afro-Caribbean origins and Africans themselves. No one country or one producer has really cornered this market. Brand Jamaica is very, very appealing in many other respects, whether it's reggae food or the Usain Bolts of this world, and now all the other athletes and sports people. Just imagine what would happen if Jamaica really started to turn that branding into consumer products that appeal to black people throughout the world. And it can be done. And with the UK, you can agree that all the chemical contents, etc., if it's okay for the UK, it's okay for the rest of the world. Yes. Agriculture, big area, strong legacy. And the history is the things that were good in the past have become less good now, and they're struggling. So sugar, coffee, and yet the country is importing vast amounts of food for itself and for the tourism market. This void is being filled in countries like the UK by people pretending that the stuff comes from Jamaica, or they say Jamaica styled. Yes. Now, what does that show? That shows that there's demand for this. Yes. But people haven't quite succeeded. You know, the reggae brand has got some traction. Grace Kennedy and others have done some work, National Bakery. But we need to find ways in which this is actually sustainable, which is why we are investing in aid, £55 million to help with irrigation. And so we create a situation where farm to market within Jamaica and then across to the UK.
But that 55 million is over what time period?
Over a 3-year period is our investment. But everybody else has to come in, and I've hosted meetings in my house with Jamaican business people, with government agencies and the international partners, saying it's not just us doing this, everybody needs to be on board as to what are we choosing to grow, how is it packaged, how is it processed, and where do we take it from there. Bamboo, grown in abundance over here, and yet it has not been commercialized. Yeah. Now we're talking, and I was talking even yesterday to potential investors. It's a British-led idea of using Jamaican bamboo, what's around now, and on a sustainable basis, and then farming bamboo, turning it into pulp so that tissue paper and many other things can be made. Ultimately, this company, if it gets going, will actually manufacture nappies or diapers, as is known in wider America. It will be the first in the Caribbean. Now, these are the real things that can be done to change it. I think the other thing is about mindset. You know, people think of their immediate neighborhood when they trade, but right now the shipping costs are distorted. It is cheaper to send something to the UK than it is to trade with the United States because of the way the shipping rates work.
Yes.
So it's not distance, it's actually a different kind of, of distortion. So all of these things are what we're working on. The other one, which I go right back to where I started, about the 800,000 people of Jamaican
descent who live in Britain.
They should really start to trade with each other. The barrels that come here, if it's just full of nonsense stuff, it's not really helping anybody. It just drains this country of its foreign currency.
Yes.
But if it's things that are needed that can be value added, where you have small businesses in the UK trading with their partners over here, you can see all sorts of things happening. And we've seen some signs. There's a lady who makes dolls, which are patois-speaking dolls. British invention, but has a market here, but can be developed from here and taken abroad. You can look around and your eyes will open as to what is actually possible. And the digital economy we haven't even touched on. And go back to something else where I claim a little bit of something slightly controversially, which is that reggae became global via the UK.
Explain.
The record producers, the labels, the marketing, the live concerts, etc.
Yes.
Jamaican. Now, somehow or other, that has become less international, and people like Chronix and others are beginning now to do it. But that whole link of art and creativity from Jamaica, mixing it up in the UK and then going global. Now, you don't even have to take the artists from here physically there. You can record segments here, mix it over there, and whatnot, and then just upload it and off you go. So I'm not just talking about fuddy-duddy old stuff that you stick in a container and ship and wave goodbye and then open up at the other end. I'm talking about the modern economy, about apps and the others. I've been talking to business people over here about bringing the equivalent of the apps that to give the taxi drivers here a bit of genuine and good competition. Right now there's nobody doing this business.
Yes.
But it can be done with Jamaican knowledge, UK and other technologies and banking platforms. So I'm really open for a much bigger discussion on this.
Within the context of the things that you see as necessary to boost trade relations between Jamaica and the UK, I ask, what is it you found in your time here, short time relatively speaking, that Jamaican exporters or Jamaican business persons want to do with the UK that they've been prevented from doing either by the legislative environment or other forms of bureaucracy?
It has a lot less to do with bureaucracy. I mean, there's one issue which I don't fully understand, but I have to accept it, that the form of cheese that you eat here, the tasty cheese, that has ingredients that cannot be called cheese in the EU. So therefore, so people sort of tend to smuggle them in because somebody is missing their fill of this orange glowing material. I've had it over here and it hasn't done me any harm whatsoever.
Yes.
But rules are rules.
Yes.
There are actually very few that really are in that way. And the arrangement that I was talking about between our two trading blocks actually allows tariff-free access. So it's not even punitive in that sense. Yes, we have rules, which are sensible rules. You don't want food that's going to be bad for you, or chemicals that are bad for you, or fish that's rotten. I mean, nobody wants that.
Yes.
So if it's healthy for Jamaicans in a national sense of organized produce, it's good enough for the UK with the one or two exceptions. I think it's mindset, because really the world is no longer that distant in many respects. Nowhere in the world is more than 24 hours away, unless it's in the far reaches of the former Soviet Union. The connectivity is instant. Payments can be made instantly. It's a question of people having that courage to go into this sort of business and making the most of it.
Yeah, in the where banana and sugar are concerned, of course, you know the long relationship that Jamaica had and the Caribbean had with the European markets for banana and sugar purchases and other traditional crops, strictly traditional. But with Brexit looming, I say looming, I've been saying looming for a long time. If it happens and you eventually leave, will there then be different and better rules on the ground governing the importation in Britain of banana and sugar produced in the Caribbean?
That was a whole narrative of the case for Brexit, that we would negotiate new trading deals with new or old partners.
Yes.
And the Commonwealth features very, very strongly in this. I think it would be wrong to get stuck in bananas and sugar in the way that you might see it from.
I've heard you say that. That's why I put the question again, because I want to know why.
So I would say it slightly differently. Let's take sugar.
Yes.
A really good example. There's no surprise that the industry is in some distress here because of all sorts of strange things, partly to do with the government's taxation policy, trying to separate industrial sugar from consumer sugar.
Yes.
But when you stick it in a cup, it tastes the same, so people saying, what are you talking about?
Yes.
Sugar, if it's mismanaged, will be dead. If it's managed cleverly, and I think that then there's a real future for Jamaica. So let me take a real case in point. Tate and Lyle have had a long relationship with Jamaica in terms of sugar, etc. But they've moved a lot further down the old chain of just producing either brown sugar or white sugar. Now there's liquefied sugar, which can go instantly into processing, etc.
Yes.
Now, Jamaica could adopt its customs duties in such a way that there's a level playing field within the Caribbean and with other competing markets. And you could end up in a situation where this liquid sugar is actually used for producers here, produced here, exported as well as used domestically without causing this strange distortion that we have. So the cure for sugar actually lies within the hands of the Jamaican government if they want to make that leap. And producers have to decide on which side of the debate are they on, to protect or to compete. Bananas, I think, is a tough ask, but processed banana into chips and other things, I think this is perfectly wide open. And this is the product that people are selling in Europe as fake Jamaican
products. So as we close this segment, you're not saying that the possibility of sugar and banana, just use those two, that the prospects are dead. You're just saying that the way putting bananas in a ship, putting brown sugar in a ship, those days are done. You're talking about processing and derivatives of those two things.
Absolutely.
There you go, that's the future. All right, we return with our final segment of this conversation with the British High Commissioner to Jamaica, Asif Ahmad.